we have 1 in 3 of our residents who rent, actually rising. Last I was heard, it's a little higher than that. It's closer to 40%, approaching 40%. In a county of 1.1 million plus, that's north of 300,000 residents who are, way more than that, but at least north of that, whose home is a rental property or single-family home, some sort of rental. And I think that scale is important and unique to us, that you have a third plus of our residents who are renters. That is their home. That's what they do. They may aspire, hopefully, to move out and to purchase a home at some point, but that's their situation today. So when we talk about these increases, and while we can always have more data, and I always welcome more data and more analysis, we do have a significant amount, 100, I think at least, or 96 complaints. Is that correct? 116. 116 complaints of exorbitant rent increases. My office alone, because I was the author of the 2 bills that the chair mentioned to have the pandemic era relief, and I talk about this issue a lot, and people reach out to me directly. We've received dozens of these requests, of these complaints rather. And that, I'm staying on this point because I think it's important to the core of what was just said. We have 300,000 plus, 116 complaints. Those are people who figured out that they can complain, who haven't already self-displaced or moved because of the massive power imbalance between landlord and tenant, and just information gap, which is always a challenge in Montgomery County, a county that's big and diverse, to make sure people know. Even when we had the pandemic era relief, there were people that we found out that had protection, didn't know they had it, and moved because they thought they had to pay the increase. And so the fact that you have 116 complaints, people who have figured out to get to DHCA, what DHCA is, to dial 311, and to say my rent went up this amount, that is a sampling. And I often say a protection is a protection. The civil rights law, you make a protection in place for the minority. That's the whole point of protections. And so when you say that there's mostly modest increases, I would agree. And I think that's a good thing, because that means that most landlords and folks who own properties would not be impacted, because if they're doing mostly modest increases. But the converse is true too, that for these individual families, these 116, these many others that I've heard from, the people who don't even know that these laws existed, their lives have been dramatically changed because their rent has been increased. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, up to 90% in some cases. And those are rare, but they are unconscionable. And my question to DHCA, as of today, if someone's rent is increased 50%, is there anything you can do about it?
Under our process, Asim Nigam, Director, DHCA, if those guys who are chiming in now, and I also want to introduce Mary Gentry, who's our new housing chief at DHCA. I think you know everyone else at the table. So now to answer your question, Councilor Jawando, in terms of our regulatory process, we can, interject ourselves in the mediation. That being said, there's no cap on the rent at this point in the county.
Right.
So if you are asking the question, can DSC really force the landlord to reduce the rent? The answer is no, because
right.
There's no cap on the rent. So, but we can always mediate the matter.
Sure. And you try to reach out and do that if you get a complaint. I'm sure for those
Correct.
116, you're trying to call the landlord, see if they can work something out. But at the end of the day, the landlord is under no obligation to do anything.
Correct.
Right. That's a problem.